Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French, and thank you for joining us this Monday evening, May 21st. 30 days. 30 days. Let me repeat that. That is what Dharun Ravi got today in the sentencing phase of this trial. 30 days behind bars is the extent of his punishment, in addition to a $10,000 fine here and probation. The ex-Rutgers student found guilty on all counts, you may remember, in March after spying on his roommate in the midst of an intimate encounter with another man, then broadcasting it online after building an audience to view it. Well, that roommate, Tyler Clementi, he took his own life only days after learning that he had been spied upon. All right, we're in first position, everyone, with the very latest.
Mr. Ravi will report to the Middlesex County Adult Correctional Center at 9 a.m. on May 31st to serve as part of a probationary sentence with other conditions I'll articulate, a 30-day jail term.
And with that, Dharun Ravi learned of his punishment. 30 days in jail, 300 hours of community service, 3 years probation, and $11,900 in fines. Additionally, Ravi could face deportation to India, but the judge recommended that Ravi not be deported. Now, the judge's decision came after a series of emotional impact statements that we heard both this morning and into the afternoon from the parents of both Tyler Clementi and Dharun Ravi. As the judge noted at one point, the case is not a one-family tragedy or even a two-family tragedy, but a four-family tragedy, forever impacting the lives of all involved. And Files One's Christy Duffy, she covered the trial from the very beginning, and she, of course, was at the courthouse today and has the first of those family stories. Let's go live now to New Brunswick, New Jersey, for the Clementi's perspective. Christy?
Rich, first, let me just tell you where I'm standing. I'm on the second floor of Mike's Courtside Bar and Grill, just across the street from the Middlesex County Courthouse, where we saw Dharun Ravi sentenced today around noontime. Now, if you remember back to March when he was found guilty on all counts, he was guilty of bias, intimidation, invasion of privacy, hindering his own apprehension, as well as witness tampering. But before we got to the sentencing portion of the day, we did hear those impact statements. We heard from both sides, and on the Clementi side, we heard from the father, the mother, and the brother of the late Tyler Clementi.
And he did it in a cold and calculating manner. And then he tried to cover it up.
Tyler Clementi's father calling the actions of Dharun Ravi calculated and cold, stating Ravi targeted his son Tyler because he was gay and did it without a thought of how it might affect Tyler and his guest, MB.
Feeling the pain and anguish that he must have felt during his final days, listening to the lies and deceptions of the defendant, and in light of the jury's unanimous findings for the crimes committed against my son and MB.
Tyler Clementi jumped from the George Washington Bridge after finding out he'd been spied on via webcam during an intimate moment with another man. And his roommate invited others to watch.
I watched as Dharun slept through court, as though it was something not worth staying awake for. I listened while Dharun and his defense attorneys laughed together, as though there was a private joke in the courtroom that I and my family were not aware of. And through it all, I listened and bit my tongue.
It's the first time the Clementis have spoken out on how Tyler's death and the 3.5-week trial has impacted their family. James Clementi's statement before the court carried a particularly strong undertone of frustration toward defendant Dharun Ravi.
He discovered that Tyler was gay, and based on this, dismissed Tyler as unworthy of kindness, acceptance, as being a person worth getting to know, and decided instead that he was someone who deserved to be laughed at, picked on, and violated.
The Clementis asked for prison time, but not the max sentence of 10 years and called for no deportation for Ravi. Judge Glenn Berman delivered the sentence.
Mr. Ravi will report to the Middlesex County Adult Correctional Center a 30-day jail term.
Now, the Clementis, at least by the look on their faces, appeared to not be totally satisfied with the sentence of just 30 days in county jail for Dharun Ravi, in addition to 3 years probation, fines, and hours of community service. But Dharun Ravi was not charged in connection with the death of Tyler Clementi. Live from outside the Middlesex County Courthouse, I'm Christy Duffy. Rich?
All right, Christy, thank you very much. Now, 20-year-old Ravi, he declined to comment before the judge, but through tears, his mother addressed the court, delivering one of the most intense moments of the day. And Fox 1's Natalie Patterson, she joins us live from the Middlesex County Courthouse with that perspective. Natalie?
Good evening, Rich. To many people's surprise, Dharun Ravi was silent the entire 4 hours that this hearing went on. For most of the day, he sat at the defense table with his attorney, somber-faced and silent, like I said. And that changed dramatically when his mother stood up and began to address the court. It was the most emotion we've seen from Dharun Ravi to date, the former Rutgers student breaking down into tears as his mother begged the judge for leniency.
As a mother, I feel that Dharun has really suffered enough.
Sabitha Ravi told the packed courtroom that her son has lived an isolated life for the last 20 months.
Dharun's only comfort now is his younger brother and our dog Lance.
She blamed the media for, quote, ripping him apart with their misleading facts, pointing out that Dharun has lost more than 20 pounds since he was officially charged in the case.
Dharun's dreams are shattered, and he has been living in hell.
After she spoke, Sabitha and her son hugged briefly, both of them weeping. Sabitha's sobs could be heard throughout the courtroom as she walked back to her seat behind Dharun. The heartbreak was apparent, just as apparent as the anger Ravi Pasani voiced as he addressed the judge. He said his son has been, quote, dragged through the mud from the very beginning. Pasani also echoed his wife's statement, saying that his son has been punished for nearly 2 years. Both Dharun's parents asked the judge for a fair sentence. We tried to ask the family what they thought of the 30-day jail term on their way out of the courtroom, but no one replied. Again, the most surprising part of the day was that Dharun Ravi did not make a statement to the court. He was expected to do so originally. In New Brunswick, Natalie Patterson, back to you, Rich.
All right, Natalie, thank you. Now for some legal context, let's bring in Eric Morrell, criminal defense attorney who's represented thousands of folks here throughout New Jersey, including a number of students at Rutgers University. And Eric's kind enough to join us now. Eric, first of all, were you surprised? 30 days here. I was going around with the attorneys that I know. Most people thought 18 months, a couple of years. No one thought 10 years. But few, if any, people thought that he was going to walk away with 30 days when it was all said and done.
Good evening. I did listen, of course, to Judge Berman, and I guess what happened was he decided that the mitigating factors outweighed the aggravating factors and sentenced him to a degree lower than what he actually was charged with, and 30 days was the decision that he came up with.
You know, Eric, before this case even went to trial, there were reportedly plea bargaining between, obviously, the plaintiff, the prosecutors in this case, and the defense, and on the table was no jail time, probation, and deportation. Ravi turned the deal down, rolled the dice, took the case to trial. I can argue 30 days in a county jail, assuming this thing isn't appealed, without any deportation as it looks right now. He went to trial, he lost, and he got a better deal than the plea deal that he turned down. That doesn't often happen, does it?
It does not often happen, but I believe that what happened was after the judge listened to all the information and, of course, the jury found him guilty. The judge is the arbiter of sentencing, and he looked at the statute, and the statute for bias intimidation had this where it could be any violation of any kind of charge, and this invasion of privacy charge was such a charge that probably wouldn't have been thought of when the statute was drafted. And I think the judge didn't think in this circumstance there was no violence, no threats of violence, and he didn't think that a second-degree amount of jail time was warranted.
You know, the judge said that as a society we have a right here to expect zero tolerance for intolerance. He had strong words here for Ravi, who he said showed no contrition, didn't even bother getting up when the sentence was being read. You certainly got the impression for the judge that he wanted to slap him with a tougher sentence. He did have the discretion to do so. It almost sounded, when you listen to the explanation, that he was constrained, but he really wasn't. He could have given him more time than he chose to, right?
Yes, he could have given him more time. He could have given him up to the second-degree range. He could have given up to 10 years. But, of course, he did not do that.
Anything in terms of precedents that comes out of this? You know, it's funny, I've heard from a lot of people, and not from the usual corners, taking maybe in arguably opposite positions than you'd expect, but a lot of people say there's going to be precedent that comes out of this. The next time there's seen to be seen bias, intimidation, etc., people are going to be pointing here to the Ravi case and say, hey, you know what, maybe 30 days is a suitable punishment. Do you agree?
I think this bias intimidation statute is going to be looked at in the state of New Jersey after this case, and I believe that it will probably be changed. I believe the legislature will realize that this is not what bias intimidation was looking to be prosecuted for. As they said, there was no act of violence, and Steve Altman argued in their sentencing brief that argument, that this was not an act of violence or a threat of violence, and it wasn't in that fact pattern, and I think that it will be changed.
Finally, he wasn't a kid. It's not like a 10-year-old. I mean, granted, he's a young adult, but nonetheless, Dharun Ravi was an adult, and I heard some people say 30 days makes it sound like it was a childhood prank gone wrong. What do you say to people out there who say, wait a minute, it doesn't seem that the punishment fit the crime here. Dharun Ravi got off way too easy.
Well, he is going to go to jail, and he will, of course, have a criminal record. But there are people that would say that this is definitely not the most fair sentence. Of course, the judge analyzed, you know, the mitigating aggravating factors and made his decision. But I could definitely see people thinking that it's too small of a time frame.
All right, Eric Morell, I really appreciate a few minutes. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to jump to a break, everybody. When we come back, I'm going to bring you at home into our conversation. If you haven't guessed, I think Mr. Ravi got off way too easy when it's all said and done here. But I guarantee you there will not be consensus at this table on that opinion, and I want to hear yours as well. What is your reaction to the sentencing of Dharun Ravi? There's a small fine, 30 days behind bars here in a county jail, and probation, but no deportation here and no prison time. Call us right now, 888-766-2428. You can also head to our Facebook page, facebook.com/RichardFrenchLive, and tell us what you have to say. We're going to bring you into our program right after this, so stick around.
My name is Ravi Pazani, father of Dharun, a long-time New Jersey resident, first-generation immigrant, and more importantly, a proud citizen of the United States. I stand by what the nation stands, for what it believes, core principles. Our judicial system advocates presumption of innocence. No one cared about the more truthful side of the story because it was not sensational, does not help media ratings, does not give any political mileage, and does not help advance lobby groups' agenda. Even it meant going against the Constitution and denying Dharun the fundamental constitutional right, presumption of innocence.